What's up, guys? I'm Abby Martin, and this is Breaking the Set. So, Tampa Bay local news just came out with a stunning report. Apparently, a recent flight from D.C. to Orlando hosted what can only be described as a terrorist dry run. Just take a look at how they figured it out.
Crew members say that shortly after takeoff, a group of four, quote, Middle Eastern men caused a commotion. The witnesses claim one of the men ran from his seat and coach toward the flight deck door. He made a hard left and entered the forward bathroom, quote, for a considerable length of time.
Wait, let me get this straight. A guy that may have been Arab booked it to the bathroom mid-flight because he may have had a bad case of diarrhea? Side effects from bad airline food? Yep, definitely a red flag. But that can't be the only reason, right?
While he was in there, the other three men proceeded to move about the cabin, changing seats, opening overhead bins, and, quote, generally making a scene. The 10 News investigators contacted both U.S. Airways and TSA, and both confirmed the incident.
Well, I'm glad that the TSA confirmed that three men were shuffling around in their overhead bins. Oh, and by the way, the TSA also followed up by saying that there's no need to investigate this incident any further. Basically, this isn't news at all, and these concerns completely baseless. So what is this really all about?
You will remember this day as long as you live.
The memories and images of 9/11 are seared into the minds of almost every American.
That's how this news report started. Yes, it seems like we can't go one day without being re-traumatized about the 9/11 terrorist attack that happened 12 years ago. You know, the reason stories like this even gain traction in the first place is because of the fear of the other. Or, by that, I mean anyone who remotely looks brown. And to prove my point, it just so happens that I've acquired some rare footage of what really went down on that flight.
This is amazing.
Yeah, I think you get the idea. Amidst the U.S. government shutdown, there's an economic ticking time bomb waiting to happen, an unprecedented default on America's debt. Well, yesterday there was almost a breakthrough in this ongoing shutdown debt hybrid catastrophe dominating Capitol Hill. You see, Republican leadership finally offered to raise the ceiling in order to avoid a default. The catch? It's only for 6 weeks. No mention of what will happen after those 6 weeks or when the government will be reopened, because youth homelessness, seafood safety inspections, and minor deaths just aren't that important. So to discuss this situation in a Congress that is officially less popular than colonoscopies, I was joined earlier by Dr. Stephanie Kelton, economics professor at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I started by asking Dr. Kelton, what would happen if Congress fails to raise the debt ceiling?
I think the only real answer is, nobody knows exactly, nobody can describe in any sort of concrete terms exactly what it would look like if the U.S. were to miss a payment, to default on its debt. But I think it's pretty clear that it would be very, very bad for the global credit system, because then the U.S. debt is, all the Treasury bonds. This is what we're talking about. We're talking about U.S. Treasuries, and they are the equity that supports the entire global credit system. So if we start messing with the equity that underpins the entire global credit system, we're talking about something that presumably would be pretty catastrophic, to say the least.
Do you think that it would shake that confidence in investing in Treasury bonds then?
I do. I mean, I think that you're going to see some pretty sizable effects. I don't know how lasting they would be. Japan defaulted on its debt after the war, and it was the only case that I'm aware of where you had what would be the same as in the U.S. This is a voluntary default. That's what we're talking about. We're not talking about whether we have the ability, whether the United States government has the ability to keep its promises, to make all of the payments that are due to seniors, to veterans, to civil servants, to bondholders, and so on. It's not about whether we have the ability to do that. We certainly have the ability to make the payments. We are in control of our own currency. And so we're talking about whether we have the willingness to pay our bills. And the only time that I'm aware of that a country with the ability to pay made the voluntary decision not to pay its bills was Japan after it lost the war, and it quite simply announced, we're not going to pay back our enemies. This is a completely different situation. Okay, this is just mind-boggling that we're talking about whether the United States of America, which controls its own currency, is going to make payments in US dollars when it is the issuer of the dollar. And there's absolutely no reason whatsoever for the United States government not to keep all of its promises and protect the full faith and credit of the US government.
Well, I think that that's what is so outrageous, is that it is voluntary. And I think that, you know, the real question that I have is this just a sham? I mean, is this whole debate just a sham to kind of fearmonger the American people, hold us hostage? Or is this really a realistic threat on part of the GOP?
Well, I think that for the most part, they view this as an opportunity. And, you know, it's not something that they're trying for the first time. And it's also, let's be honest, not something that only the GOP has done. Both sides, both parties, historically have used the debt ceiling to try to gain some leverage, to get legislation that they want passed or that they don't want repealed. And so in many ways, this is not something new. They view it as an opportunity, and they're trying to do something to throw some red meat to that segment of their base that is so vocal, that turns out to the town hall meetings. It gets very vocal and upset and energized, and will shout down their elected officials and primary them. And, you know, these people view this as, I think the GOP is thinking, you know, we cannot simply vote to raise the debt ceiling without getting something in return. It will, you know, we have to be able to go back to those town hall meetings, and when those folks stand up to us, we'll say, but we got Social Security, or we got, you know, whatever it is that ultimately might come out of some sort of a deal in the next month or so.
But let's move on to the Affordable Care Act. Why do you think Republicans are so vehemently against it, considering how it's essentially a Republican plan? You have no single payer, no public option. It's essentially a mirror image of Romney Care on a federal level.
It's a great question. That's exactly, as you described it, that's exactly what it is. So what have they been saying? They've been saying that they oppose it because they view it as another big government program that makes people dependent on government in some sense, that they're going to grow to like the program, that they're going to become more dependent on it, it'll be harder to take it away from them in the future. But really, I mean, there are some good things in the Affordable Care Act. I think there are very good things in the bill, but on the whole, this is not a piece of legislation that I particularly like. This is a huge giveaway to Wall Street. This is saying, you know, to Wall Street, here are 37 million Americans we're going to send your way, and you're going to provide insurance for all of them. Notice there wasn't a whole lot of pushback from the insurance industry on Obamacare. And so it's a piece of legislation that in many ways Republicans should like.
Stephanie, I wanted to get your opinion on Janet Yellen nomination to head the Federal Reserve. Of course, the media is in a field day about it. The conversation about her potential nomination focused on the controversy over whether Obama would choose scandal-plagued Larry Summers over her. But my question is, why focus on these superficial controversies instead of actual Fed policies? Because most of the people that I know don't even know that the Federal Reserve is a private institution or independent.
Well, yeah, that's right. I would say independent, and they're independent of government in the sense that they get to set interest rate policy without having to ask Congress for permission. I mean, that's really what Fed independence is all about. They can do QE, they can do Operation Twist, they can adjust short-term interest rates, and they don't have to get congressional approval to do it. That's what independence means. But they aren't independent of government, and they say that all the time. And when Bernanke sits under oath and testifies before Congress, and Congress asks him, you know, what is the Fed prepared to do? His response is, we'll do whatever Congress tells us to do. At the end of the day, the Federal Reserve understands that it is there as a creature of Congress, and that Congress made the rules, the dual mandate, for example, that gives the Federal Reserve the mandate to pursue both high employment and high economic growth and low or stable inflation. Those are the marching orders given to the Fed by the Congress. Now, Congress can change the Fed's mandate at any time. They can give them a different set of objectives to pursue, and the Federal Reserve will do its best to carry those out.
It does seem like the Fed has a problem giving an audit, though.
Well, yeah, that is true. Bernanke does not want people coming in and poking around too closely. He was very sensitive, for example, in the wake of the financial crisis with the Fed intervention, swap line agreements, and other lending to financial institutions. And he didn't want that sort of deep probing that would have revealed exactly how much the Fed spent intervening to prop up the financial system. That is true.
Thank you so much for weighing in on all these issues, Dr. Stephanie Kelton, Department Chair and Professor at University of Missouri, Kansas City.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I take no prisoners, you call it aggressive, but all I see is lies coming out in your message. What can you say?
Guys, we're soon approaching World Food Day on October 16th, a day founded on the goal to defeat hunger and make food a source of empowerment for all. October also happens to be Agent Orange Awareness Month, a time to educate about the lasting effects of the deadly chemicals sprayed by the U.S. military during the Vietnam War. And with these two important dates in mind, activists from all over the world have chosen this Saturday, October 12th, to hold the second official march against Monsanto. See, Monsanto is not only responsible for the production of Agent Orange, but now it's overtaking the global food supply with genetically modified seeds. The march against this monolithic corporation is an international event set to take place in over 400 cities across 50 countries. So to talk to me more about this massive rally and where a demonstration is taking place near you, I was joined earlier by Nick Burnaby, activist and organizer with March Against Monsanto. I first asked him why the movement against Monsanto is gaining so much traction around the world.
Well, I think it's because it's such a broad, it's such a broad movement. You know, there's so many different people from different backgrounds. It's not one of these left-right issues. It's really people from all places, all, you know, poor and rich, all over the world. It affects all of us. So I think that's why there's so many people getting involved, and a lot of people just don't know about Monsanto and about what's going on with these GMOs and the policies. And when they find out, they get activated. They're ready to take a stand as soon as they find out. And I think that's why it's grown so quickly.
So is the march just about awareness right now, or is there any specific action that you guys are trying to put forward to enact policy change?
Yeah, well, you know, the last march was really, it got really fired up when Obama signed the Monsanto Protection Act. And, you know, in my opinion, we've been successful to get that removed because the Senate has announced that they're not going to continue the Monsanto Protection Act. So they're dropping it from the Farm Bill. So, you know, that's at least one tangible, one tangible win that we already have. Other than that, you know, last quarter Monsanto reported a loss, and it was millions of dollars that they lost last quarter, and you know, we think that is at least partially due to the new awareness that's being brought about. And you know, awareness is key. Affecting their bottom line is key. People voting with their dollars. And also we want to transform the food supply. We want to make it more of a bottom-up approach instead of a pyramid scheme for the food supply. We want to get the communities involved. And I think that's where our biggest effects are taking place, is at the community level. People are starting to produce their own food and use these new ideas like aquaponics and community gardening, CSAs, co-ops, and things like that. And I think that's where we can really have our biggest effect.
What else can we do other than, you know, obviously not buying from Monsanto and kind of venturing out to farmers markets and things like that?
So we got to keep supporting these initiatives to get the labeling. I believe that once we get one state to get GMOs labeled, that'll be the domino effect, and it'll start happening all over the country. So I think that would be one good first step, is to push for at least one state to get labeling legislation passed.
Absolutely. Our health is at stake here, Nick. I wanted to throw out some hashtags for people to find on the Twitter sphere more about this event. They are hashtag MarchOct12, March Against Monsanto, O12, O12, and MAM. Nick, where else can people go to find out more about the march and where they can get involved?
Well, they can go to our website, which is march-against-monsanto.com. So it's marchagainstmonsanto.com. And under the events link, they could find the alphabetized list of all the events around the world. It's ordered from continent, country, and state and city. So it's really organized. You could find it there. You could also search in Facebook for March Against Monsanto and then type in your local city. We have over 400 events, so there should be an event near pretty much wherever you're at. And it's still not too late to even start an event. There's a little directions pad there on the website as well, where you could set up an event. There's some quick directions there. Other than that, you'll see people out in the streets in most of the capitals tomorrow, and it's not too late to join these events as well. And a lot of these events are highly organized. They're going to be really effective, spreading the word. There's flyers all over the internet. People can print them out and take them along with them. And then you can find us on social media as well. Facebook page, March Against Monsanto. You can find us on Twitter at March Against M, and follow us there, retweet our stuff, share our posts, and this event seems to be building a lot of momentum, and we think it's going to be even bigger than the last time.
Well, Nick, now's the time. People care about this issue. They need to get out in their communities and get involved, link up with like minds so we can really drive Monsanto into irrelevancy. Thank you so much, Nick Burnaby, activist for March Against Monsanto.
Thanks for having me, Abby.
Guys, I know that I'm always telling you to write me and let me know what you think about the show. So today I'm going to respond to some of your feedback, starting with YouTube Raybo Bao says, Abby, what's with the goat around your neck and the black and white dress? Was that your idea, or was ya told to wear it? Yeah, dude, I get a memo every day from my Illuminati Sith Lord telling me to wear my checkerboard color scheme to brainwash the audience into mind control. I mean, anyone can clearly see that the necklace is a goat head, not just some cool geometric pattern, right? Well, let's move on to the video I did about the neglect to Native American communities in the U.S. in light of the Redskins controversy. Or, actually, I'm skipping that, moving right on to Twitter in response to my segment about the devastating lasting effects of Agent Orange. At Rock Rogers says, they never should have bombed Pearl Harbor. Wait. Agent Orange, Pearl Harbor, I think that's two different countries, man. Vietnamese people and babies born with birth defects should have never let their Japanese ancestors bomb Pearl Harbor. Genius. And now on Facebook, David Haney says, in response to my self-immolation piece in which I said that I remember as a child seeing imagery of monks on fire during the Vietnam War, he says, you weren't even alive during the Vietnam War. And you're an insult to American military veterans. Well, David, I understand you're probably confused at what I meant, which was not that I was actually alive during the Vietnam War, but just that I remember seeing those images when I was younger on posters, books, magazines, and throughout the media sphere. And I'm not sure why it automatically follows why I'm a disgrace to veterans, but okay. And from yesterday's show about the energy crisis we face, someone on YouTube named James Alexander Fish said, the Russians have proven the existence of a biotic oil, and Abby's still screeching about the oil running out. WTF? James, once again, you seem to be another confused troll. I'm not screeching about oil running out. I'm talking about it, bro. And all I'm saying is that we should be concerned about how polluting, destructive fossil fuels are, and that we should be seeking alternatives. But he had such a stick up his ass that he continued trying to discredit me by saying, quote, Abby needs to bone up on her English. She used the word automized. The proper word is automated. It is hard to take someone seriously who seems confused about grammar. Oh man, well, instead of schooling you myself, I'll let ZTHG4821 reply for me, who said wrong. Automized was an appropriate word choice per the Oxford English Dictionary. Automize, verb, another term for automate, another term for automize. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks as always for writing and for watching.